It's the biggest change in the lettings industry for over 40 years.
If we were like, right, we want to buy a second property to rent out, what kind of tips would you say?
We have to remember that most people are good people.
Welcome to the Grab a Coffee podcast. I'm Alice.
And I'm Francesca.
Catch up weekly with a coffee where we chat about life running small businesses, juggling motherhood,
and tangents ranging from holiday embarrassment to female hormones and everything in between.
Hello, everybody. Good morning.
Hello,
good morning. And good morning, Anne. So today we've got the lovely Anne from Bricking It Properties as a guest with us. So we're just going to chat to her about how she started a business and kind of more about what she does and why she started it.
And we like having friends join us, don't we?
We like having little chats and learning more about other people, yeah. So,
morning, Anne.
How are you?
Good morning. Hello everyone. My name's Anne. I am the owner and director of Bricking It Properties. I also own a secondary business as well. So my first business is a lettings business called LJ and Keep Lettings. We specialise in property management for houses of multiple occupation, often known as HMOs. And then from there, I've grown my secondary business, which is Bricking It Properties, and that is a property development company. So I buy properties that are run down, they're knackered, nobody wants them, nobody can live in them. And I basically buy them cheaply. I go in and refurbish them. And then once they're fully refurbished, new kitchens, new bathrooms, all singing, all dancing, I then rent them out. And then I refinance and pull out the equity that I've created in the properties. So that's mainly the business that I work in at the moment, but I do have the secondary business, which is the property management company as well.
Did you start the property management first?
Yeah, so the property management already existed. I've worked in property management for 11 years. Started off in corporate, some of the big high street brands. It didn't fit. I don't fit with corporate. It's not my cup of tea. I don't fit with their culture. So I'd had enough of it. I'd worked with a company that had a restructure. I don't know if I can swear, but it was dog shit. It was awful. It made me feel like crap, and I just didn't feel happy there anymore. So, not really knowing what to do, I left, and I went and trained estate agents instead. And I did that for about a year, and then an investor who I used to work with in corporate got in touch with me, and he was like, "Anne, I've started this lettings business. Will you come and run it for us, because we don't know what we're doing?" So I was like, yes, because I hate this trading stuff. So I sacked that off and started working for him. But the people that he was working with were not the people that I was used to working with in corporate, which is just normal, everyday people who might have they might have bought a property when they were young. They've then since met somebody, they've bought a property together, and they've just had this property that they started with, and they've just wanted to rent it out. They're called accidental landlords. That was never their intention, just circumstances.
I can make sense.
See that. Yeah, like a single person would buy a house on their own, and then
those were the landlords that I was working with in corporate. But when I started working with LJ and Keep, the people that I was working with were using all these crazy strategies, and they weren't even using their own money to buy properties. They were using other people's money. They weren't just buying like a little 2-bedroom house. They were buying, like commercial properties and carving them up into all these crazy, other businesses, and just basically just doing these incredible things and making money left, right and centre from these things that I've never even heard of. So I was completely, utterly consumed with it. I did loads of education, did loads of reading, listened to loads of podcasts, went to loads of networking events. And I basically learned how to do it myself. And then about 3 years ago, I started buying properties myself. So I use a strategy called BRRR, which is buy, refurbish, rent, and refinance. And it's a really simple beginner strategy. All I buy are just buy to let, like your little 2 or 3 bedroom houses. I love those types of things. And this last 12 months I've bought 4. I've got 2 others that I've got, and there's more in the pipeline as well. So
Brilliant.
I'm trying to level up as quickly as possible, really.
So it's quite a quick turnaround for you.
How long
'cause
does a
the
refurb
business
take? I do stalk your Instagram and see, like, because I love property stuff and I love, like, watching, you know, like Homes Under the Hammer, that kind of thing, and
Yeah.
seeing the quite downtrodden houses getting refurbed really fast. How long does it take from, like, when you get the keys generally?
Well, it depends. So the first one that we got probably took a couple of months, and it didn't even need that much new carpets and redecoration. But we decided that we were going to do that. What a mistake that was, because we were having to try and do like a refurbishment on a property, both working full time, doing this after hours and on weekends. You know, unfortunately,
You've got your own house as well.
Yeah,
I think you could probably do something like that if you were making that house for yourself. If you were making that house for yourself and it was a project of love and you could spend your time on it, but it's not, it's a business, so you just felt like just get the damn carpet down.
Oh, absolutely. Honestly, the amount of arguments between me and my husband, and then when we started doing the next one, I just said to him, "It's okay, Alan, I'm going to get somebody else." And he was like, thank God for that. And even now, whenever I buy something, he's like, "Who's doing the work?" I'm like, "But don't worry, Al, it's all right, it's not you." He's like, "Thank God," because he likes and he's all right at DIY. It's just not his bag at all. So now I have a team that I work with, a build team. So the key is speed. So as soon as you get the keys, you want your builders in, you want it ripping out, and you want to get everything like boxed off as quickly as possible. So we'd normally plan a refurb being about 6 to 8 weeks. Usually at week 4, we'd start the refinancing process. So we'd go back to our brokers, have a conversation about getting a mortgage on it, and then hopefully by the time it's refurbished and we've got a tenant lined up, the surveyor's coming out and doing the revaluation. From getting the keys to getting money land in the bank, it can be about 5 months. Wow. So it can be quite quick, but it's not as quick as people think it is. And what you see on Homes Under the Hammer isn't necessarily the truth.
I love those shitty programs.
If only.
I know, honestly.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Right at the beginning when you said about, you know, a property that nobody wants or something that's run down, the amount of times I drive past something and think, oh, what a shame, I bet someone's run out of money or someone just can't sell it and it's just sitting there wasted.
Yeah, it's
so
waste.
For me, I know it's your business, but for me it's like this lovely service to the community that these houses are getting a new lease of life.
No, I agree, because some houses are just left to ruin.
Rot,
yeah, to rot, and then but the people need rental properties, so and like the size of the properties that you're doing as well is affordable rentals for people.
Yeah, like, normal houses.
Yeah, like 2-3 bed terraces. Do you have an area that you love, or are you fussy about what area you buy in? Is there an area where you get a better buy to rental?
It depends. So I live in Wakefield, and my lettings office is in Castleford. So my real focus when I started was Castleford, because I'm there every single day. But I've got the only town I don't have something in is in Featherstone. I've got something in Wakefield, Pontefract, Normanton, Castleford, and Nottingham. I just don't have anything in Featherstone yet, which is not intentional. But Wakefield and the 5 towns is the area that I like to invest in because I know it really, really well.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And to be fair, there isn't really one area that's better than another in the whole Wakefield district. I mean, there's like your Sandals and your Miller Dam, and I'm not buying in those areas. You're not picking a house up there for 60 grand. So, you know.
Yeah.
So, for example, the house that I've got going at the moment, it was actually on the open market. So it was available for anyone to buy. It was on Rightmove. I went to go and look at it. It was a really weird viewing, actually. I was supposed to meet somebody at 1:30. Got there a little bit early. Couldn't see anybody. Some guy started walking on the street in a suit. And I was like, oh, that must be the agent. So I got out and I was like, hey, if you're all right, I've come to view the house. And he was like, right. I was like, are you the agent? Said, no, I'm at a funeral. I'm like, oh, piss. Right, okay. get back in the car and ring the agent. Then I'm like, oh, I'm really sorry. So I got back in the car, rang the agent, and they said, oh, yeah, it was the vendor that was doing the viewing, but he's really busy, so he's just left the door unlocked. So if you just want to go in, he's left the keys in the back door. So just have a look around, and once you're done, just post the keys back through the letterbox.
Very trusting, that, isn't it?
Could have told you.
Yeah. I mean, there was absolutely nothing worth nicking in the house, and you couldn't have wrecked it any worse than it was. So I suppose there was nothing to lose by getting strangers looking at the house. I went and looked at it. It was on the market for £90,000. I rang the agent. I was like, it's an absolute shithole. It needs a full refurbishment, and I think the roof might need doing as well. I offered them 63,000. They turned it down because somebody else had come in and higher offer. But then a couple of days later, they rang me and said that offer's fallen through, and would I increase? And I said, nah, 63. 5 minutes later, they rang back and was like, yeah, it's fine.
Oh my
Brilliant.
God.
Yeah.
What?
But then I
what's
just managed to
the-
negotiate another I negotiated another 2k off that, because they wanted me to use their solicitors, and it was just a faff. And I was like, no, I'll tell you what, I'll pay my own solicitors, just not £2,000 off the asking price. So I actually got it for 61 in the end.
Wow.
Well done.
Yeah,
And was that 2-bed?
it was a 2-bed. Yes, I could have converted it into a 3, but then the rooms wouldn't have been good rooms. They'd have all been like 3.
I'd rather have a big, decent room.
Yeah, I would. And especially the terraces. You just know when a room's been split in half, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing, you want people to be comfortable, you want them to be able to live their life in the house, and you want them to stay for it a long time as well. So I could have got a little bit more for it. I could have got a higher valuation for it, but it wasn't worth it to create 3 pokey rooms. I'd rather have a good size master and a decent size second. So we're currently on the refurb with that one at the moment.
Even if it's someone with 2 kids, they can share a big room, can't they?
Yeah, I'd rather share a big room than each have
2
something
box
really
rooms,
pokey
yeah.
and not even get a proper wardrobe in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
ready
exactly.
to, like-
When we were walking it out, we were like, oh, I could get a 3rd bedroom out of this. But then you're like, but then your actual, where would you put your bed? Because your bed's then like wall to wall, and no, let's not do that. Let's just leave it as it is.
Yeah.
But
Brilliant.
literally, the plaster was literally falling off the walls. You could see bare brick. You know, the worktop was rotten. It all collapsed in on itself.
How do houses get into this state?
I think, to be fair, with this gentleman, I think because he'd only bought it about 9 years ago, so he's not owned it for a long, long time. I just think maybe he's fallen into a difficult period of his life. His mental health maybe struggled, and which can sometimes be the case. It gets too overwhelming, it's too much, and then people can't deal with it anymore, and they have to look at alternative options, which I believe is what happened here. Because I actually bought it from We Buy Any House. Have you heard of that company?
Okay. Yeah.
The whole We Buy
Only
Any
the car
car.
version. I didn't know they were house.
This
Yeah.
is so weird. I only heard about it on Monday, 2 days ago. It's the first time I've heard about it, and then you've just mentioned it because my friend, she owns a flat in Leeds City Centre. Again, has become an accidental landlord because then her and her now husband own a house in Morley, but then she's still got this flat. But it's really difficult to sell because of the cladding and stuff. It's like you know the Grenfell cladding situation. This apartment block is got that cladding. There's loads of problems with it, and it's quite hard to sell the flats in this block. So she's just like struggling with it. It's causing her a lot of stress being a landlady. So yeah, they were looking with We Buy Any House on Monday. She had a call while we were in IKEA. They called her with an offer for her.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I know. It was the first I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so We Buy Any
you can buy
House.
from them as well. So they obviously buy from people who just want rid
So they
and
will
get rid of the stress.
normally- Yeah, so they normally offer like massively below the market value because they know that people that are approaching those types of companies are desperate. So it might be worth £100,000. If the cladding wasn't an issue, it might be worth 100,000. They'll come in and say, right, we'll give you 55,000.
Yeah.
Because what other option have you got? They might go away and explore other options and then come back and say, I'll take it. They then have like another company called the House Sales UK, I think it's called. So we buy any house, buy it. They pass it then to their sales company, and the sales company put it on the open market to sell. And that's how it worked for me. So I bought a house from the house sales company, but then when we got into the nitty-gritty of the paperwork, it turned out it was actually we buy any house. But I would just stay with your friend. There are other options. She doesn't have to sell it, and she doesn't have to rent it to an individual. There are other options that she could look at, such as rent to rent. So rent to rent, somebody like me would come along and I would rent her apartment from her. But what I would do, with her permission, and it'd all be contracts in place and agreed, I would then turn it into like an Airbnb.
Ah, okay.
And then I would rent it on a nightly basis. I would furnish it with furniture that I've paid for. I would take on all the bills, all the lease fees, all the voids. So that's a cost to me. That's a risk that I take. But she's guaranteed to get money every month, and she doesn't have to think about it.
Okay, so so you'd be renting it from her with kind of permission to sublet.
Yeah, permission to sublet. Yeah, subletting is illegal. If I rented your house and then I went behind your back and rented it to somebody else, that's illegal. But if I say to you, look, Alice, I'm going to rent this property out, but I'm going to take on all responsibility and I'm going to act as the landlord, would you be okay with that? As long as you agree and we get it in writing, then that's perfectly legal. So I actually have a
that's
property.
really interesting.
I've got a property that I do something similar with. And it was actually my first rental property. And it's called a purchase lease option. So I went to go and look at a house to buy. It was the vendor that was showing me around. It turned out he'd been renting it for years. He really couldn't be bothered with it anymore. He didn't have a mortgage on it. It just kind of topped up his pension. But he was fed up of all the changes in legislation and tenants and all that kind of gubbins. So I just said to him, well, how about I rent it off you for the next 5 years, and I guarantee to pay you this rent every month for the next 5 years. And then in 5 years' time, I buy it off you. So you want 100 grand for it now. I can't give you 100 grand for it now. I can give you 100 grand for it in 5 years' time. But in the meantime, I'll rent it and give you a guaranteed income every month. And now 4.5 years into that agreement, that property is now worth £140,000. I'm going to buy it from him for 100.
Oh, that's clever.
Right, okay.
Oh, you are clever, Anne.
Oh, I know.
She's so wise. So I was really excited to have you on.
Get started. You just need to find the strategy that works.
Yeah, I've said to... So my father-in-law used to have rental properties in Doncaster. And I said to my husband recently, because there's so many houses, so many terraces for sale.
Are you buying a house?
Near where we live. Well, I said to Liam, have you considered, because he has like a lot of money in savings, so I said, have you considered getting a buy-to-let, and like I can kind of manage it, because obviously I'm self-employed, I can just work it round the coaching, and you know, if the tenant has an issue, I can pop in if we get one local to us as well. But there's obviously like so many things to consider. If we, like, hypothetical situation, if we were like, right, we want to buy a second property to rent out, what kind of tips would you say? Like, how should we approach it as the first time doing it?
I would always speak to an agent, and I wouldn't do it yourself.
Okay.
As much as people don't think that estate agents do much, letting agents don't do much. They think, oh, they just take 10% each month off my rent, and they don't do now. They're actually protecting you from a lot of legislation that could land you with £40,000 fines if you get something wrong, or even a prison
10%
sentence.
is not that much, really, is it? Like, if
no,
the rent's
but then if your
£800, it's not that much.
It's not. There's lots of things to consider with property. So if you were to buy a house in your name to rent out, your rent, for example, God, let's try and work some square numbers. Your rent's £1,000. You're going to pay 20% tax on that £1,000. So you're going to leave you with 800 quid. Then you've got to pay 10% to your management, the £1,000. So you're actually losing 30% of the first. So you're down to 700 quid. Your mortgage might be 400 quid. That leaves you with £300. Out of that £300, you've got to put 10% away for any maintenance that might crop up. You need to put a little bit away for any annual compliance checks, like your gas safety certificate and such like that. So you might only end up with £1,000 rent. You might only end up with about 200 quid.
Yeah.
Is it worth it? And I think, and it's looking at those things and going, actually, for 200 quid, is it worth it? I'd need, I don't know, 15 of these to replace a salary.
Oh yeah. No, it would be more for like, the way that I would see it is doing it so that it's like an investment. So, because obviously the house will get increase in value over time. More just having it as like an investment piece rather than so that in 20 years.
Yes, and that's how you need to look at it.
Not for short-term money.
No, exactly.
I also think
you've got to make sure that you're looking at cash flow. So you might get 200 quid a month out of that. Typically, house prices double every 10 to 15 years. And as wild as it might think, 15 years ago in Castleford, where our office is, you couldn't give a house away at 40 grand. They're now worth 140,000. Nobody 15 years ago would ever have thought that a house in Castleford would have been worth 140,000. And it's wild to think that potentially in the next 15 years, that 2-bedroom terrace is worth 250,000.
Yeah.
Statistically, that's what does happen. So you have to think about the long game. Right, yeah, I get 200 quid a month now, but I know that in 15 years' time, that property is probably doubled in value, which means then, I've actually made 80 grand for just sitting on a property.
Yeah.
If you left it long enough, you could sell it when Elodie's ready to buy a house.
Or just give her it
to buy her house.
The other thing that I've thought of, which, because I've, over the few years since becoming a mum, I've met so many mums and friends who were in such difficult situations, like single mums especially, who were just really struggling, to find just a place to live with their child or children, and I just think it would be so nice to be able to provide rental properties for single parents, and it's quite difficult when you become a single parent, I think, to
absolutely
be able to live in a nice home.
And I'm absolutely, and I think there's a huge misconception of single parents or people that might be in receipt of universal credit. Whenever anybody rings our office up and says, "Oh, do you take?" They always say DSS. Do you take DSS? We haven't used that term for about 20 years.
Yeah, it still says it on Rightmove. No DSS.
Yeah. Well, you've not been allowed.
But that's regular money. Do they not realise
the Discrimination Act? Yeah, you're not supposed to. They're not allowed to do that because it's discrimination. You can't advertise property that says no DSS. That became law years ago. So people that are doing that, slap on the wrist to you because you shouldn't be doing it. But it's having those conversations. If somebody rings us up and says, "Oh, do you take benefits?" I'm like, let's have a conversation. What benefits? Is it full universal credit? Is it universal credit top up? Do you get PIP? Do you get ESA? What is it you're getting? Right, okay, let me see if I can help you with that. At the moment, unfortunately, it's going to change. It's going to change in a few weeks. At the moment, you cannot mortgage, your buy-to-let mortgages says that the person that you're renting to has to be working. So a lot of the time, the decision's out of our hands. That's what the mortgage says. Yeah. But that's about to change because on the 1st of May, the Renters' Rights Act comes into force, and it's the biggest change in the lettings industry for over 40 years. And because of some of the changes, some of the institutions that you have to work with in property have to change their T's and C's. They don't like it, but it's the law. So moving forward, from the 1st of May, mortgage companies can't say to me, "You can only rent to working professionals." because they aren't allowed to do it by law. So
But if you've got a universal credit top up,
yeah, I mean, I bloody love universal credit top up. When I was
because you're actually working.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, and I think when people are inquiring about properties, they may be going at it the wrong way. They'll inquire them like, do you take benefits? They're not saying, you know, I'm working and I get UC top up. Well, that's a different kettle of fish to you not working completely. And the only reason that universal credit has become a bit more of a bone of contention is because years ago, it used to be like you'd get your income support, you'd get your job seekers, you'd get working tax credit, child tax credit, and then they changed it to universal credit, and then they said, right, housing benefit has to go to the tenant. It used to come directly to the landlord. So the landlord knew that they were going to get their rent regardless because the benefit came to them. But then the government changed it and said, we want to teach people how to be more responsible with their money, so we're going to give them the housing benefit. Now,
this makes sense.
To pay the rent with, but then
but then sometimes that doesn't happen.
A young single mum, a week before Christmas, her housing benefit drops, and I get this because I've done it myself. She's not paying her rent. She's making sure the bloody kids have a nice Christmas and there's food on the table and they're having a lovely time because that's what she wants. That's what she needs to do as a parent, is to make sure those kids are looked after. And she'll pick up them. She'll be like, "Oh, I'll top it up. I'll pay an extra £50 a month to top up the rent arrears." You know, previously it'd go straight to the landlord. So yes, she couldn't have done that, but equally she wouldn't have been in rent arrears. And in the most extreme circumstances, you give somebody who's maybe got a substance misuse issue, £500, they're not paying their rent.
Yeah.
Their priorities are not keeping the roof over their head. And this is where it started to cause issues. So then landlords said, well, I'll just not take them. I'll just not take people that are in receipt of benefits.
Yeah, it's a risk. It's a big risk.
Yeah. And it's a frustration.
Unless you know the person, like, you actually know them.
Yeah. So I always try and find out more about these people, what their circumstances are. You know, is there anybody that can support them? Could they get a guarantor, because that'll help? Or are they able to get a guarantor, like insurance? Like some councils will guarantor, some councils will pay a deposit, you know, for a tenant if they've been receiving universal credit. So there are options.
Get you in a house.
People don't always know this. If we've got a tenant, if we have a tenant that loses their job whilst they're living with us, and they come in and they'll be like, "Oh, can I get a letter? Can I get a letter-headed paper?" And I was like, "Are you making a claim?" They're like, no, it's fine. And I was like, "No, it's fine. Okay, so what you need to do is, they won't tell you this, but you need to go and ask for a discretionary housing payment. You need to go and ask for these food vouchers. You need to get in touch with your gas, your electric and your internet, because they will give you preferential rates because you're now in receipt of universal credit. You need to do this, this and this and this." And they're like, "Bloody hell, I didn't know that." And I was like, "No, because they won't tell you."
No, nobody
it's up
does.
to you
It's
to go
awful.
find it. So I'm telling you, go do these things, because you'll get an £80 food voucher off Wakefield Council. You'll get a discount on your internet. It'll only be basic, but you'll get your internet, which means that you can then hunt for jobs. You can do your CV.
Yeah.
You know, you can those opportunities. You get your discretionary housing payment, because your housing benefit won't be enough to cover your rent, but you can get a discretionary payment to top it up. So they get that. And they're like, "Oh, bloody hell!" Because the more money I can put in your pocket during this difficult time, the more likely you are to pay your rent.
Yeah.
So for me to give you this
you're helping
information
them to
costs
help
me
you.
nothing. Yeah, I mean,
That's so
I've been
good,
there.
because a lot of people, I do think, and I think there's a big misconception about landlords as well. Like, I think people assume that they're just all in it for the money and they're just really like cutthroat, and obviously that's not the case.
No, and this is and it's the same with tenants as well.
Yeah.
Most people, we have to remember that most people are good people. Most people are good people. Most landlords are good landlords. Most tenants are good tenants. We manage 250 units, and I'd say out of 250 tenants, we maybe have 3 that have been difficult at any one time. And it's not that they're being difficult, they're just frustrated. It might be that the maintenance is taking a little bit longer than we'd like. You know, they're maybe their circumstances have changed and they're trying to kind of find their feet again. But in the grand scheme of things, to only have like 1% of your tenants being and they're not being arseholes.
Yeah.
Frustrated, and I get it because we see it from our side as well as landlords. But yeah, most people are good, and we do need to remember that. And you will only ever see the negative side of things.
Yeah,
that's true.
You won't ever hear those stories about anything. Is the negative.
True. Yeah.
Years and years ago, flitting from one rental property to another, just moving around, not for any reason, all, just paid my rent. And I remember it always dragged in time and, oh God, and ringing up and checking on. And the lady at the letting agent said to me, we actually do this on purpose to see what kind of person you are. Because you've rung us, but you've been kind and asked questions. You haven't rung up and said, I want my fucking keys.
Right, yeah,
I've been reasonable.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, actually, we do want to rent to you, even though I passed the credit checks, the bonds there ready. Everything was all done officially. And I don't know whether that's the case or it was just them or she shouldn't have told me. And we're talking 20 years. But she said, we do that on purpose to see what kind of person you are. And I was like, oh, thank God I'm quite nice on the phone then.
That's really interesting. Because you do see, obviously, when people are starting to get frustrated, that is when you see the worst of someone. So if someone can still be polite in that situation.
Yeah, exactly. And if I'd been horrible to her then, she could have said, oh, sorry, no, we're not going to let you because I might have been horrible not paying my rent or sticking in the house. But yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, right, well, now I've been nice.
And that's the thing with being a letting agent is you do need to gauge people, and we meet so many people. So we send you send an inquiry, we'll send you then some like pre-qualifying questions like how quickly do you want to move, are you working, if you're not working, how are you going to pay your rent, got any pets, blah, blah, blah. And then we'll book the viewing, and then when we meet with the viewing, we're then like, oh sorry, did you say that you worked? I thought you said that you worked at this place. So immediately we're like, so they told us on the application that they work at this place, but now they're saying that they haven't started work there yet, and actually they don't start work for another. And then you're like, oh, right, okay. Oh, and then you mentioned that you haven't got no pets, but you've just mentioned that when you take the dog out in the morning for a walk. So have you got a pet? And it gives us the opportunity to kind of gauge people, probe them, find out a little bit more about them. But we just say, just bloody be honest. If you've got a pet, most of our landlords, because they're investors as opposed to accidental landlords, and the law changed anyway in May, but most of our landlords do accept pets because they understand that if somebody's got a pet, they're likely to stay longer. And we want long-term tenants because what we don't want
see it as their home then.
They'll turnover of tenants, because every time a tenant turns over, that's more money for us because we've got a void period when no rent's getting paid. We're having to pay the agent to do all the remarketing and the referencing and such like that. We want long-term tenants that, pay the rent and look after the house. And if that's the case, then you stay as long as you bloody want. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to kick anybody out if they're being good and paying the rent. Why would I?
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Have you ever been a tenant?
Yeah. I've only ever lived in... I rented property until 10 years ago, and then 10 years ago I bought my house that I live in now.
Wow.
So I bought my first property 10 years ago and I still live in it. But up until then, I'm 44 now, so I was 34. I rented up until the age of 34. The shortest time I've ever lived in a property has been 2 years. The longest I've lived in a property has been 8. And I've never once had any issue with any landlord. I've never had a deposit deducted from. I've never had a landlord be an arsehole or want to try and evict me. They've just kind of left me a bit. One landlord, I only ever saw him once in 8 years, and that's because Yorkshire Water came and dug my drive up, and they found a gas leak, and he was a gas engineer, and he had to come and fix it. And that was it one time in 8 years.
Wow.
He didn't even have a key to the house. He was like, oh, I haven't got a key to the house. Are you going to be in? Like, I need to come to the house. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's funny. Was that in Wakefield as well? Have you always rented and lived around Wakefield?
I'm originally from Hull. So I had I rented twice in Hull, and then I moved stupidly for love in 2005. So I was 23 when I moved, and I moved to Castleford because I'd met a boy online. Yeah. Uprooted my entire life for a boy. And actually, I wouldn't go back. I moved to York for a little while, and York's beautiful,
Did
but
you?
I didn't last a year. Did not last a year, and then I moved back because I didn't like it. People don't understand
Yeah.
that.
Oh,
It's different. It's a very different type of place, York, though, isn't it? I don't know if I could live in
Yeah.
York. It's also very touristy. I
yeah.
see York as a place to visit. I don't know if I could live there.
Yeah.
Like,
The
it is
problem with
beautiful.
that is the problem with York. It's so utterly expensive, and
Yeah,
you don't go out into town because it's full of tourists and students.
yeah.
So you end up
Yeah.
you don't get to enjoy York for how beautiful it
You just
is
live
and
in
all
your
the
little
incredible
suburb.
things. You just live out the edges, and you go to the retail parks on the like on the edge of the city,
Yeah.
and then you actually end up going to places like Leeds. And
So you may
you
as
go
well
out
move.
of York to enjoy, lifestyle stuff because you don't want to access it in York.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. My sister's a
I
tenant.
also used to play
My sis-
roller derby, so my team was in Wakefield. So
yes,
all
you
the
told
time
me
I
about
lived
the
in
roller
York, I
derby.
used to drive to Wakefield 3 nights a week to train. So, and all my friends were here, and it was just really isolating being in York. I just felt like I was a million miles away from everybody. So I managed to
Yeah.
convince my husband to move over this side with me. And he says he'll never go back to York. Having now lived outside of York, he realised how kind of like insular it was and how
Ah.
isolating being in this tiny little city with nothing around it for like miles.
Mhm.
How
Yeah,
isolating
that is the
it can
thing about
be.
York. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
So
we've
is your
been back over
husband
this way about 10 years now.
settled and feel like you're home?
Yeah. I actually, when I lived in York, I actually worked for a guy who used to design for Burberry, and he ran an antique shop, and I used to run his antique shop for him. Weird. And then I was like, actually, do you know what? I really don't want to be in York. I need to find a job over this end so that I basically forced myself to have to move back over here. So I got a job at Burberry. I got a job at Burberry in Castleford. And then I was saying to my husband, like, oh, every day it's taking me 45 minutes to get to Castleford, 45 minutes back. And I was like, should we just move over to Castleford?
Yeah.
They are,
Oh no, we'll have to move.
Well, he was a taxi driver, so he could bloody work anywhere. So we weren't limited by his
Oh
job.
yeah.
So, yeah.
And is your husband the boy you moved for, or is that different?
No, different. There's been a few frogs. There's been a few frogs. Since the first
There's always
guy
a few
to
frogs first.
No, to be fair, I was with that guy for about 6 years, but it was a really, really toxic relationship, and I didn't realise how toxic it was until I told him to leave. And then when he left, honestly, it just felt like I physically felt myself get lighter.
Oh.
However, all my friends do say that he was the one that broke me, and I'm not the same person that I was when I was with him. And I'm much more like steely and determined and like driven now than I was with that person. But I think that's because when it finally clicked that it was such a toxic relationship, and I said to him, "You don't need to be here now." And he was like, "If I go, I'll go." And I was like, "Yeah, you go." And it was just such a like moment of focus, and I just said, "Yeah, go." And he left, and immediately I was like, "Oh, what is this life? I've got this like new life," and it felt amazing. And yeah, I had a couple of years of just having fun and enjoying my life and experiencing different things. And then I met Alan, and we've been together for 13 years. Been married for 3. Yeah, it's a good egg. He's my best mate. Like I didn't realise how like this is what relationships are supposed to be like. Like he's my best mate, and I just want to hang out with him all the time.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's so
It's one of the
cute.
other
I love
reasons that I
that.
do property as well, to be fair. But yeah, the main reason that I do the property is because, one, because I love it, but two, Al's got a spinal disease. It's not a disease. He's got a condition called cauda equina, which is basically nerve damage to the base of the spine. And although he's still mobile at the moment, it is likely that over time, just because it's quite degenerative, he could end up in a wheelchair. There's not really much they can do with it unless they operate and fuse the spinal vertebrae. But if they do that, that operation is so high risk that they don't want to do it until they absolutely have to. But unfortunately, the next kind of step in that direction is when Al becomes incontinent. So as soon as that happens, they'll blue light him straight to Leeds. They'll do the operation, but the risks in that operation are so extreme. It's like, right, so you might not die, but you might end up blind, paralysed, doubly incontinent,
Oh,
you know. So the key really is to try and build a property portfolio that gives us enough cash flow to be able to offset his loss of income.
yeah.
Just over the next sort of few years, try and kind of reduce his hours at work. There's the more of that time that I can give him to recover between his shifts, you know, the longer that I'm going to have him mobile, basically. And the longer I can have him mobile, the longer we can enjoy our lives without too much restriction. But equally, like I say, if it does come to the extreme where, you know, he is, you know, incapacitated, then we need to have that income to cover, because, you know, personal independent payments aren't going to cover, you know, looking after somebody that's wheelchair bound, the adaptations
No.
that we'll need for our house, or the type of house that we'll need to live in, or that I might have to step away from work as well to facilitate his care. So we need to try and look at future proofing our life together, and property is one of the ways that we do that.
That's fantastic how you can use it like that, and it's obviously because you're a good businesswoman and you've researched and used strategies, and you've got your long-term plans and your short-term plans, because everything so far seems to be like a long-term, with your 5-year renting and then buying at that set price. So it's like a long-term plan. You were saying about your house, the 20-year plan. It's all in the long run, but each one of those that you do all the time, creating this much bigger, more secure future.
Do you have is there like a timescale for Alan's condition, or is it just really person dependent?
It's literally, there's people that have had this condition for many years, and it's not progressed to the point where they've had to have surgery. There's other people that have had surgery and actually it was probably too soon. They've had it too soon, and actually it's hindered their life a lot sooner than if they'd have just waited. So we just have to kind of keep an eye on it. There's some days where he's really struggling, and then he might have to take a couple of days off sick just to try and have an extra bit of time to recover before going back to. He's a truck driver, so for the most part he's sat down, but there is a lot of physical activity with being a truck driver, because you're having to pull all the cages. He works for Sainsbury's, so when you're pulling all the cages off the back, you've got 45 tons worth of cages that you're pulling off the back, and then you're pulling empty cages on, and you know, and there's a lot of pressure on, you know, your spine when you think about when you're pulling, and the muscles and how your body has to react to pulling something. And you know, the way that he physically has to do his job has changed, because, you know, and Alice, you'll know this with knowing like the anatomy in fitness is, you know, if you're lifting a weight, you need to make sure that you're engaging the correct muscles, because if you're not, then you could cause yourself an injury. So we're always thinking about those types of things. Like, he used to ride his mountain bike. He used to go riding all the time, like 30-mile rides. He can do 5 miles now, because the pressure on the base of his spine being sat on the bike can cause, you know, he already has like loss of sensation in one of his legs, and he can't feel the underside of his foot. And then because he can't feel the underside of his foot, he sometimes trips over quite a lot. But then having to then regain yourself again, can jar you back. Oh, it's just always been like, you all right? Watch that step. Make sure you do. Let me carry that bag in. I'll take the bins out. And he's like, will you just? I'm like, no, because the last thing I want is for you to do something, and that be the thing that pushes you over the
I was
edge.
gonna say, is he good at telling you if he's struggling that day, or because I feel like men just they're so stubborn and like they don't want to ask for help and with things like this, and they don't want to be seen as like struggling. So
To be the strong.
but obviously like because you've got such a great relationship and you are best friends, like will he say, yeah, and I do need help today?
He does most of the time. But there's definitely times when I've said to him, come on now, how are you doing? And he's like, I'm fed up of moaning about it, fed up of like complaining. I think physically he deals with it really well. I think the bit that he struggles with is the mental.
Yeah.
Dealing with the fact that he can't do what he used to do. He can't ride his bike anymore. He can't tinker with his car for too long. He can't, like, we've got like big tropical plants in our garden, and he used to help me like drag them across the garden plant. But he can't do that now. So now he has to watch me like towing this freaking palm tree across the freaking garden because he can't help. Or I say to him, look, can you just for like a moment, can you help me do this thing? And then I'm like, no, right, I've got it. So my physical load has had to increase to offset his physical load. But I think that's the thing that, he struggles with the most is mentally, as the alpha male man, he can't do those things anymore. And I think that's what he struggles with is, as the physical provider, I'm not able to fulfill my role as man. I think that's what he struggles with the most. I'm like, that's fine. I'm very strong, Alan. Very strong. So.
Good job, you're strong. You'll be getting strong.
Yeah.
Oh God, I do think it's important. This is a prime example of why it is important for women to be strong as well. My mum just started weight training a couple of years ago, obviously because of me. And when she started, she was using like 1 and 2 kilo dumbbells. She was like, oh no, you're not going to have me lifting those heavy dumbbells. And then last year she bought a set of adjustable dumbbells where you kind of like spin them and they go up to 24 kilos. And she carried them up 2 flights of stairs to their attic room where she does her workouts, like without even thinking about it when the guy dropped them off. I genuinely think now she's stronger than my dad. And I've said this to my sister. I said, Dad's losing muscle mass. He's not. Mum's now more active, and he's not as active. Like, and she is actually she's going to be stronger than him. And I think it's great for her, but he doesn't see that. And in his mind, he's still as fit and strong as he was like 10 years ago. But in actual fact, because she's now looking after herself more, and like obviously doing strength training, like I would rather ask her to help me lift something heavy than him, because I feel like he would end up like with a niggle or a twinge, whereas she's just like, yeah, okay. But it's been really great for me seeing her like confidence, and like when our daughter just like throws herself at her, my dad kind of like flinches, but my mum just like picks her up. And it does get like knowing like you've got that strength does give you a lot of confidence, and I can imagine like for Alan, like losing it must just really knock your confidence. That would be really hard.
Yeah, I think with your mum though, just thinking back about do you know, like, women are the primary caregivers in a family. They're the ones that are hoiking the big washing piles up and down the stairs, towing the bloody car seat, the prams into the cars, and bringing the shopping in. We're doing a lot of physical activity, and then your kids grow up, you become less active because they don't require your physical presence as much, and then you get older. I mean, I'm going through perimenopause at the minute, and I feel weak. I feel like I can't even lift a plant pot up some days, and I'm like, oh, my back. And I keep thinking, and I spoke to you a while back, didn't I? Maybe a year ago now, about doing strength training, because I used to be really active, and now I'm not. my activity's changed. So I'm in the garden quite a lot. And to be fair, the amount of mattresses I'm having to tow out people's bedrooms and clear, do tip runs happens all the time. But yeah, I think that being physically fit, being physically capable, obviously that I need that right now, because obviously I'm having to offset Al's inability to help. But having that, all those good endorphins that you get as well from, doing the exercise kind of keeps you pushing forward, because for a little while, I've really struggled with a lot of brain fog, and I don't know if I suffered from a bit of burnout. I feel a little bit more on it now, but I am on HRT, so I don't know if that's kind of helped. But
Oh, yeah, probably.
I definitely feel like at the minute I've regained some of my focus, and I'm ready to kind of go again, because for a little while I felt like I was in a bit of a slump and I didn't really know what to do or how I was going to do it, or didn't have the motivation to do it. Whereas now I'm like, yes, I'm ready for this.
Good, that's good. Yeah, hopefully the HRT is helping. It does help a lot of people. I feel like you're so resilient. Hi, Alice here. We ended up chatting to Anne for a further 35 or 40 minutes. So what we've done is we've decided to split this episode into 2 parts. So you're going to have to come back and listen to the second half of the episode. As you can agree, Anne is an amazing woman to speak to. So we look forward to you hearing the rest of our chat soon. Bye!